One of the questions that we keep asking that we can't get an answer is, how does Erika Kirk know Tyler Bowyer? She couldn't recall that in person. We can't get an answer. If that is true, and also why Justin Shrife has a different version of events than somebody else at the company regarding whether or not money was missing. There's a lot there that I feel needs to come out. I do not believe for a single second their version of events that Charlie established Doge 7 days before he died.
Candace stepped into some risky territory with this one. Instead of simply questioning Erika, she pushed the conversation further and connected Erika's mother and Tyler Bowyer to concerns about financial activity that some observers say doesn't fully add up. And almost like a small detail that many people initially missed, an older clip suddenly began circulating again online, where Erika casually referred to Tyler as a family friend. At first glance, that phrase might sound harmless, but the wording carries real weight. If that description is accurate, it immediately puts pressure on the timeline that has been repeated for years about how Erika supposedly met Tyler around 2018. That's why those two words suddenly became such a big deal. Before anyone even talks about celebration videos or the rumored multi-million-dollar financial questions people keep discussing online, attention keeps returning to that phrase, family friend, because that type of wording usually suggests a connection that goes back much further than a casual professional introduction. And if that connection really existed long before 2018, it raises a serious question that many viewers started asking right away. Was Tyler truly just a political contact who happened to answer a call from a pageant title holder one afternoon? Or was their relationship already established behind the scenes long before the public version of events was shared?
And I was trying to recruit her hard to come work for us. And so through all that, I'd introduced her to Charlie. I was like, I think she could be great. She could be wonderful. And Charlie was immediately in love. And one of the calls I got was from Erika. She's like, hey, I was Miss Arizona. I love Donald Trump. Can I be involved? I'm like, absolutely.
Tyler's explanation of the timeline has always sounded clean and well organized. According to his version, Erika reached out in 2018 because she wanted to become involved with a major political rally. That is when he says he helped position her behind the president so she would be visible during the event and appear on camera. Later, he explained that he introduced her to Charlie. Tyler even joked in interviews about giving Charlie advice before their first date. He described sitting in the car with him and offering encouragement about what to say and how to approach the moment. That detail matters because it suggests Tyler wasn't simply making a quick introduction. He appeared to be actively guiding the entire interaction. But this is exactly where the timeline starts getting complicated. Observers keep pointing to one key issue. If Erika later described Tyler as a family friend, that suggests their relationship might have existed long before the rally story that people have heard repeated so many times. And if that relationship truly stretches back further than that moment, then the idea of a random cold call in 2018 suddenly begins to feel less convincing. What once sounded like a chance introduction starts looking more like a situation that may already have been in motion behind the scenes. The timeline becomes even more confusing because there isn't just one explanation about how Erika and Charlie first met. There are several different versions floating around publicly. Charlie once said they met during a turning point office opening. Meanwhile, Erika shared a different story where Charlie reportedly sent her an urgent direct message while she was visiting the Hamptons. Then there is another account entirely, yet.
So I met her and I was like, we've got to put her behind the president. So I had my family behind the president, my grandpa who just passed away just a few months ago, who loved Charlie, loved the show, everything, listened daily. It was my grandpa, my dad-in-law, Lauren, my wife, and Erika is up there.
Yeah.
She's faith-based. She's so centered on Christ. We've got to lean in and involve her here because we were starting the initial talks about Turning Point Faith or TPUSA Faith.
The Israel story, where she said she noticed him standing in an airport line during a pilgrimage trip she took with her mother months before they officially connected. One detail appears repeatedly across those early stories. Her mother seems to appear in the background of many of the key moments connected to that period of time. And this is where the conversation takes a more serious turn, because this is also the point where Candace began raising the temperature of the discussion. She claims that people close to the situation told her that large amounts of money were difficult to account for within certain Turning Point Action financial records. According to her description, the branch connected to those concerns was the same one Tyler oversaw, and the number that keeps being mentioned, in discussions online is around $10 million. Candace also said that when she first raised questions internally, leadership told her clearly that nothing was missing. But she claims the explanations later started shifting, which is what made her even more curious about the situation. And this is where another uncomfortable detail enters the picture. Erika's mother, Lori, was reportedly placed on the board of a data-focused company connected to the same broader network. When Erika was asked about that appointment, her answer left many viewers with even more questions. People immediately began asking the same thing across social media. Why Lori?
I'd introduced her to Charlie. I was like, I think she could be great. She could be wonderful. And Charlie was immediately in love. He'd set up a date to go meet her at the gym. And I took him over and I dropped him off there. And it was the whole car ride over there with pep talks. All right, this is what you got to do. This is what you got to say. Hey, if she says this, don't do that. And he's like, well, what do I do if this, like this?
I was today years old whenever I realized that Tyler Bowyer said that Charlie moved to Arizona for Erika, even though they haven't met yet.
So I don't know if I want to call myself the reason. I think Erika's the reason. I think ultimately, if it would have been for Erika being here, probably God wouldn't have got Charlie to nudge him to be here. But
why place her in that position instead of a large donor or an executive with long experience in that industry? Another layer adds even more complexity to the situation. Reports suggest Tyler already had a prior relationship with the family before some of these events unfolded. When people place all those pieces together, the circle suddenly begins to look extremely tight. Tyler oversees large financial operations. Lori appears connected to a board role within the network. Erika rises quickly into proximity with Charlie, and the introduction between them was facilitated by the same individual who later faced questions about financial irregularities. But the discussion didn't stop there. After Charlie's passing, online users began sharing clips pointing out that Tyler appeared unusually upbeat in public shortly after the tragic event. Those clips spread rapidly and triggered heated debate across social media platforms. Before people jump to conclusions about motives, Candace frames the situation differently. She argues that influential networks rarely operate through pure coincidence. According to her perspective, these circles often build pipelines, systems that guide certain individuals through education programs.
It was a while ago. I can't even keep track of dates anymore with babies and anniversary dates and everything else in between. So anyways, so we had met through a family friend. He had invited me to the office opening for Turning Point USA.
He just sat there and he looked at me and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to hire you. And I was like, that's fine. I don't need this job. I'm doing plenty of other things here in Manhattan. He's like, I'm going to date you.
Mentorship opportunities, pageants, and political training environments that quietly shape who gains influence and who does not. Within that framework, Candace presents Erika not as someone accidentally caught in the system, but as someone who may have developed inside it. She suggests the environment tends to reward individuals who gradually move closer to powerful circles. In that interpretation, Lori appears as a strategic figure working behind the scenes, someone who could have advised Erika on who to connect with, how to present herself publicly, and how to navigate rooms where relationships and reputation carry enormous weight. When observers step back and examine those early details again, some say the situation begins to feel less like coincidence and more like alignment between multiple moving pieces. Then the emotional tone of the story shifted during the State of the Union moment. When Erika stood after being recognized, viewers online quickly compared her reaction to another grieving mother mentioned during the same event. The comparison spread quickly across social media. One woman appeared visibly overwhelmed with emotion, while Erika appeared calm, composed, and very aware of the cameras around her. Candace did not focus on that contrast simply for dramatic effect. Instead, she used the moment to highlight a question many viewers were already discussing quietly online.
So we met at the office opening, the Turning Point headquarters office opening, the first one, August 2018. And I had no idea what to expect because I was coming into the office from the standpoint of they were potentially going to hire me.
I knew of Erika. I saw Erika. And we had a very brief meeting at the office.
Standing there at the ticket line, and there was a guy who was checking out, and I see him, and I was like, I tell my mom, I was like, that guy looks really familiar. And my mom was like, go say hi.
Why did the reaction feel different from what people expected during such a serious national moment? In situations like that, audiences often expect visible emotion or vulnerability. But what many viewers saw instead was someone who looked steady, composed, and extremely comfortable standing on a national stage. The moment quickly became a major talking point. Clips circulated widely, and viewers replayed the footage repeatedly while debating what it meant. Some argued that everyone processes grief differently and that composure should not automatically raise suspicion. Others felt the moment appeared unusually polished, almost like someone who understood exactly how a public stage works. Candace leaned strongly into that second interpretation. According to her, the real issue was not whether Erika felt emotion. The deeper question, she suggested, was whether Erika had been preparing for moments like that long before the public ever learned her name. That is when Candace returned again to the idea of pipelines, systems designed to guide certain individuals toward influence through a series of carefully structured opportunities. In that framework, pageants, networking events, and political organizations can sometimes function as training environments. They expose young personalities to donors, media figures, and influential leaders while teaching them how to handle cameras, public speaking, and high-pressure situations. Candace argued that when someone spends years moving through environments like that, they often become extremely comfortable under scrutiny. Cameras stop feeling intimidating. National stages stop feeling overwhelming.
How does Erika Kirk know Tyler Bowyer? She couldn't recall that in person. We can't get an answer. That seems to be something that she doesn't want to answer, right? But Tyler's a very significant person because he introduced her to Charlie. Charlie told this individual that he was establishing Doge because $10 million was missing. And this person definitely knows Charlie, he knows Erika. And, is there any truth to this? They said, no, that's not true.
Instead, they feel familiar, and this is where she connects that State of the Union moment back to the earlier timeline questions. Because if Erika had already been moving through those networks for years, with guidance from her mother and introductions facilitated by people like Tyler, then the idea that everything began with a single random call in 2018 suddenly becomes much harder for some observers to believe. From Candace's perspective, the timeline matters because it determines how Erika's entry into the political world should be understood. If everything truly happened suddenly, then the story appears to be a series of lucky coincidences. But if her presence in those circles developed slowly over time, then it starts to look much more strategic. And once the word strategy enters the conversation, attention quickly shifts back to the financial questions that earlier raised eyebrows. The reports Candace referenced about money connected to Turning Point action accounts did more than mention a large number. They introduced the idea that significant funds may have been handled within a very small and closely connected group of people. To be clear, none of these claims have been officially confirmed. Candace herself acknowledges that the situation remains part of an ongoing public discussion, but she insists that the questions alone deserve attention. When millions of dollars are being discussed, when board roles appear linked to family members, and when introductions between major figures happen through the same tight circle, observers naturally begin wondering how those connections originally formed.
A lot of people are speaking, and somebody who was within Turning Point USA confirmed to me that money was indeed missing out of Turning Point USA. I can back that up 100%, which is why I'm saying it publicly, that there were millions missing out of Turning Point USA. And the reason why it's coming to my mind is because Tyler Bowyer has a relationship with Lori, and Lori was put on the board of what's that company, whatever it's called, that AZ Tech or something like that.
That line of thinking brings the focus right back to Tyler Bowyer's role in the story. According to Tyler's own explanation, he simply helped connect two people who eventually developed a relationship. He has described the introduction as casual and even lighthearted, recalling how he joked about giving Charlie advice before the first date. In his telling, the situation almost sounds like a movie moment. Two people meet through a mutual acquaintance, hit it off immediately, and their lives change soon afterward. However, critics argue that the situation may not have been quite that simple. When the same individual oversees major fundraising activity, introduces key figures to each other, and reportedly has earlier connections with family members, the narrative begins to look more complex than a simple introduction story. This is the exact point Candace continues emphasizing. She argues that influence networks rarely depend on random coincidence. Instead, they often operate through familiarity, trust, and proximity. People within these circles may already know one another long before the public ever becomes aware of those relationships. If that pattern existed in this situation, then the phrase family friend suddenly carries much greater significance than it first appeared to. Those two words would suggest that the relationship between Tyler and Erika's family may have existed well before the rally story that people keep referencing. And if that is true, then the idea that Erika first contacted Tyler in 2018 would no longer represent the beginning of the story. It would simply mark the moment when the public version of events began to unfold. This difference might seem subtle.
That's what she said. Lori was put on the board because they needed a familiar name. I guess there's just not enough billionaires that donate to Turning Point USA for them to have put someone other than Lori. That something is wrong. Something is very wrong and rotten at the top. I want to add this. Across the board, everyone that I have spoken to says that Lori, Erika's mother, is exceedingly problematic. Exceedingly problematic. Okay, I don't think she is likely an honest dealer. But what people have said to me is she is the person, has always been the person in Erika's ear. Like, she's this type A person that tells her who to go after in each and every room. She knows who those people are, who Erika should instantly transform into subject, because there's always this, well, she's sick now, you can't talk about her mother at all.
But it changes how people interpret everything that followed. Instead of viewing Erika's rise as sudden, some observers might see a carefully guided path. Instead of a spontaneous introduction, they might see a relationship that was already developing quietly behind the scenes. Candace also notes that when questions like these begin circulating, organizations sometimes respond cautiously at first. Early responses may strongly deny that anything unusual occurred. Later, explanations can shift slightly as additional details surface. She claims that something similar happened when she initially asked about the financial concerns connected to Turning Point Action. According to Candace, leadership first assured her that nothing was missing. But later, she says the explanations surrounding the situation began to change. Again, these claims remain part of a broader public debate. No official findings have confirmed the financial figures that continue appearing in online discussions. Still, the conversation has continued growing because so many different elements intersect. Personal relationships, influence within political spaces, financial oversight, and family connections. For online communities following the story, these overlapping details have created a puzzle that people keep trying to piece together. Each time an old clip resurfaces or a timeline appears slightly different, the speculation quickly returns. And that is exactly why the phrase family friend keeps coming back to the center of the discussion. If those two words truly describe the relationship between Tyler and Erika's family, then the origin story about how these individuals first connected may need to be reconsidered. What once sounded like a random moment, a phone call about a rally, a quick introduction, and a relationship developing soon afterward, might instead represent only one chapter of a much longer timeline. If Candace's view about tightly connected influence networks holds true, then the real story may not begin in 2018 at all. It may begin years earlier inside circles where introductions, mentorship, and strategic relationships quietly shape someone's path long before the public ever notices the names involved. And to make things even more complicated, Candace says several former insiders described Erika as someone who adapts her public persona depending on the environment she is in. According to those accounts, the version of Erika people see may shift depending on who is present, who holds influence in the room, and what the moment requires. Some former colleagues have reportedly claimed that Erika seemed to carry herself differently depending on the environment she was in. When she was around donors and well-known political figures, they say she appeared highly polished, strategic, and extremely aware of the power dynamics in the room. But in more relaxed settings, those same people claim she seemed far more casual and informal. Supporters say that kind of adjustment simply shows professionalism and social awareness. Critics, however, interpret the difference in a very different way and argue it feels more calculated. And that divide in interpretation is exactly where this story keeps splitting opinions. Depending on which perspective someone holds, the same behavior can appear completely different. One side sees adaptability and confidence. The other side sees careful image management designed to navigate powerful spaces. Now, this is where the conversation begins expanding into something much larger.
But to get into the Erika story, you have to know who Lori Frantzwey is, and you have to know who this cast of character is around her. And Erika is, without question, a climber.
Kirk is looking down at us right now, and he's really excited about all of the action that's happening right now. Really excited. He is so excited. The only thing is he wishes he was here to tell us exactly what to do. He liked doing that.
Who had been arrested over a dozen times and was released through no cash bail, stood up and viciously slashed a knife through her neck and body. No one will ever forget there were people
Because if the financial concerns Candace mentioned involving roughly $10 million were ever proven accurate, and if internal changes quietly happened behind the scenes afterward, and if certain figures gained greater influence following Charlie's passing, then the discussion moves far beyond personal relationships. At that point, the focus shifts to an entirely different question. Instead of concentrating on how two individuals first met, observers begin examining who holds control when an organization experiences a sudden leadership transition. History shows that when a central figure is no longer guiding an institution, power inside those structures rarely stays still. It shifts, it reorganizes, and sometimes it becomes concentrated among a smaller group of individuals. That possibility is exactly why the financial side of this situation has drawn so much attention. Candace has repeatedly suggested that some insiders were uneasy about how funds were handled and how certain leadership roles evolved over time. Again, none of these claims have been confirmed through official findings, but the questions themselves have continued circulating widely across political discussions and online communities. Once large financial figures begin appearing in public conversations, especially numbers as high as $10 million, scrutiny naturally increases. Donors, volunteers, and supporters begin asking how funds are monitored, who manages them, and what safeguards exist to maintain transparency inside large organizations. And when those financial questions appear at the same time as leadership changes, people begin examining timelines even more carefully. That is exactly what many observers have been doing. They are looking closely at the sequence of events, the introduction between Erika and Charlie, the rapid increase in Erika's public visibility, the internal dynamics within the organization, and then the moment when Charlie was no longer present to guide the movement he helped build. Whenever a major figure leaves behind such a large leadership gap, institutions often go through a period of adjustment. New voices begin emerging, alliances shift, and responsibilities can change quickly. Sometimes those transitions happen smoothly. Other times, they create uncertainty about who ultimately directs the future of the organization. Candace argues that this is where the public should pay closer attention. According to her view, discussions about personal relationships can sometimes pull attention away from deeper structural shifts taking place behind the scenes. And that brings the conversation back once again to Lori, Erika's mother, and the role she may have played during those earlier years. Throughout the timeline Candace has described, Lori appears repeatedly in the background. She is mentioned during the early travel story. She appears again in details connected to Erika's early public positioning. And according to reports, she also held a board position associated with a data-focused company operating within the same broader network. For many observers, that repeated presence has sparked curiosity. When family members appear at several key moments, particularly moments involving networking opportunities, introductions, and proximity to leadership, people naturally begin wondering how much influence may have existed behind the scenes. Candace's interpretation is that Lori was not simply watching events unfold from a distance. Instead, she suggests Lori may have acted more like an advisor figure, helping Erika navigate powerful spaces. According to that theory, Lori may have helped guide how Erika approached influential environments, advising her about which relationships mattered, which opportunities were important, and how to present herself effectively among people who shape major decisions. Supporters strongly disagree with that interpretation. They argue that family members often offer guidance and encouragement, especially when someone is stepping into a demanding public role. From that viewpoint, Lori's presence does not indicate strategy at all. It simply reflects family support during a high-pressure period, but critics say the pattern still feels unusually coordinated. They point to the timing of Lori's involvement during several moments that later became important turning points in the broader timeline. And this is where that phrase family friend suddenly becomes important again. If Tyler Bowyer truly had an existing relationship with Erika's family long before the rally story that has been widely repeated, then the timeline many people assumed was spontaneous could be incomplete. That possibility is what Candace continues highlighting. She argues that influence networks often operate quietly for years before the public ever sees the visible connections. Inside those circles, introductions rarely happen by accident. They typically grow through mentorship, reputation, and trust, built gradually among people who already operate within the same professional environments. If that pattern existed here, then the idea that everything began with a single phone call in 2018 might represent only the moment when the public story started. not the true beginning of the relationships involved. For people studying the timeline closely, that difference changes how the entire sequence of events appears. Instead of a sudden rise into national visibility, Erika's path might look more like a gradual climb, shaped through introductions, networking, and opportunities that developed over time. Supporters argue that this process is not unusual at all. Many successful public figures grow their careers through mentorship networks and professional relationships. But critics respond that when personal connections, financial questions, and leadership transitions appear in the same timeline, transparency becomes even more important. That is exactly why the discussion has continued expanding among online communities. People have started revisiting older clips, archived interviews, and early posts to understand how the pieces connect. Each time another detail resurfaces, it triggers a fresh round of debate across social media platforms. Some observers believe the questions will eventually settle once more information becomes available. Others believe the story may continue developing if additional insiders decide to speak publicly about what they witnessed behind the scenes. For now, the biggest unanswered issue still centers on how much of the early timeline has been fully explained. Because if what Candace is suggesting eventually turns out to be accurate, then the phrase family friend will not remain a small background detail. Instead, it could become one of the key pieces of the entire puzzle, a clue pointing toward relationships that may have existed long before the public narrative began. And when small details suddenly become central to a much larger story, that is often the moment when curiosity turns into deeper investigation. People stop quietly speculating and begin asking more direct questions about how influence, leadership, and financial oversight intersect inside powerful organizations. Whether those questions lead to clear answers or further clarification remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, the conversation surrounding this timeline shows no sign of slowing down. More details are being examined, more connections are being discussed, and more people are paying attention to how these relationships may have formed long before the public spotlight ever appeared. So now the discussion turns to you. What do you think about the timeline, the connections, and the questions that have been raised? Share your thoughts down in the comments below. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like the video and share it with others who have been following the story as well. And if you want to stay updated as more pieces of this timeline continue unfolding, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.